That monster in Moscow has got to be stopped. Latest Russian fighter jet, that's like saying the tallest midget. You asked me earlier if I would fight for Ukraine, and I will, as I said, be honored to come and fight for Ukraine if I'm asked to do so.
Hi everyone, my name is Zhenya Melnik and this is UNITED24 Media. Today we are going to have a Zoom interview with Two Dogs Hampton, who's a retired US Air Force Lieutenant Colonel and one of the most decorated F-16 fighter pilot in history. First of all, thanks so much for taking the time and speaking with us today. And I would like to start with the first question. So there was a lot of skepticism towards the delivery of F-16s to Ukraine. First of all, the decision to provide these jets to Ukraine, then training of the pilots, then logistics. The main issue seems that it takes a lot of time to train our pilots and also the lack of the pilots themselves. And in one of your interviews, I read that you mentioned that it's a possible option to fix this would be to create a foreign pilot legion. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, I am not a politician, so I don't know why it took so long. It certainly wasn't Ukraine's fault. It was other politicians in other countries. I wish this had gone a lot faster because, as you said, I mean, it's not like renting a car. You can't just jump into an airplane and go do it. The F-16, like all modern jets, is very complex and it takes time. That's the bad thing. The good thing is that the pilots that you have selected, that Ukraine has selected to go do this, are already experienced pilots, Sukhois or MiGs, so they don't have to learn how to fly. They don't even have to learn some of the tactics. All they have to do is learn the new airplane, the new weapons, and then apply what they already know. The thing about the Foreign Legion and foreign pilots that we suggested was this is a way to get instant experience into your Air Force. These are guys, we were proposing that already have 15 or 20 years and thousands of flying hours to help out, to consult, to do whatever the Ukrainian Air Force wants. And I think they would like to have this happen, so we'll just have to wait and see. I wish it would happen sooner.
You mentioned that you yourself would also volunteer to join such legion if it would be created. Are you still willing to do so?
Absolutely. This is important. I mean, it's obviously important to you because you're sitting in Kyiv. But I mean, this is important for Europe. It's important for the world. That monster in Moscow has got to be stopped. And the way to do it is on the battlefield, because then his own people will finally realize what a liar he is. And maybe they'll hang him up by his feet and shoot him. I don't know. They'll get rid of him. They'll make a change.
Various experts said that Ukrainian pilots still need time to participate in combat operations because now they're mostly engaged in air defense operation. Our pilots, they're already quite experienced. How soon do you think, what would be your prognosis, that our pilots can finally be doing combat missions on F-16s?
I think they're already doing combat missions. You mean by assault? You mean attacking ground targets? Mm-hmm. Okay. Close air support, and we call it surface attack, is very complicated and very dangerous. But your pilots that have gone through training in the United States and other places were trained on that in the F-16. So it's just a matter of what is the priority. Is the priority now stopping drones and glide bombs, or is it attacking things on the ground? And that's the beauty of the F-16 and why your government was very wise to choose it, because it can do both. It can do 6 other things as well. I will say this, I mean, it's a little tricky, but your pilots know the basics of it. And as I said before, they're very good pilots. And in the end, as a fighter pilot, you do whatever you have to do. And it's a lot more important for your pilots than it ever was in the wars I was in, because they are protecting their home. They're protecting their country. They're fighting over their own country. I haven't had to do that, thankfully, because nobody would be stupid enough to invade the United States. But they have an extra incentive, an extra desire to do this and do whatever it takes, because they're protecting their own people. So I guess what I'm saying is, when the time comes to do it, they'll do it and they'll do it right. You can always use more training and practice, but they'll be able to do it. I have confidence in them.
Well, in October, the Netherlands officially confirmed that their F-16s are already in Ukraine, and they also mentioned that the other 24 jets will be delivered in the next couple of months. Is it enough to close Ukrainian sky? Is it enough to start these assault operations, in your opinion? And will it make a significant difference on the, not battlefield, but in the sky?
No military officer will ever tell you that there are enough jets, tanks, ammunition, whatever. We could always use more. So more is better. Mm-hmm. I think your government did it very, very wisely at the beginning to start small and figure out the logistics problems and other things. And now that I think they've done that, now is the time to bring in more airplanes. So I will say as many airplanes as can be delivered, Ukraine will take them. And that's another advantage to using foreign pilots as consultants, is the more pilots you have listed, the more airplanes that you get from NATO and the United States. So in the absence of Ukrainian pilots at the moment, the foreign pilots could really make a difference in the number of aircraft that Ukraine takes delivery for. So I think they've already made a difference. You ask if it would be significant. Just having the airplanes that you have has made a significant difference. The other day, they shot down 10, 12 inbound cruise missiles or glide bombs, and that's just what's publicized. There's always more. And so I think that they make a difference every day. With more aircraft, you have the capability to do more missions. Like you said, ground attack and protecting the skies. You need more jets to do both of those, but I think that's coming. I hope so.
Do you think it is already the time to imply also like the Mirage jets that France has pleaded to deliver to Ukraine? Is it a time already to combine various jets, or is it maybe too soon? What's your opinion on that?
I think you're at war, and I think you have to do what you have to do with what you have. I'm not a big fan of the Mirage. I've fought too many of them in training and wasn't impressed. But France is willing to give them to Ukraine and to train the pilots, and that is all valuable. Okay, and the Mirage is a good airplane. I don't think it's as good as the F-16, but then the Mirage pilot will tell you that the F-16 isn't as good as the Mirage. It's just a pilot thing. I think that Ukraine has shown itself to be, your Air Force has shown itself to be very adaptable. Okay, look at everything that's happened, both on the ground and in the air, and the way you've taken what you have and made the best use of it. So having other jets is only going to help. Hopefully you'll get more than 6. But, at this point, you take what you can get and you make the most of it.
How do you think Russia might adapt its strategies to counter new Ukrainian jets?
I don't care what Russia does, and nothing they're going to come up with is going to make a difference. I think that they will try, obviously, but I think that if Putin wants to keep his Air Force intact and his pilots alive, he needs to keep them back away from the front lines like he's been doing, because if he sends them in against F-16s in Mirages, they're going to die, which is good. I mean, that's good. The more we shoot down, the less you have to worry about. I don't really foresee them being able to do much to stop us once the F-16s, the Western jets, are up in numbers doing what they have been trained to do and know how to do. The Russians can't stop them.
But in your opinion, can the F-16s that Ukraine get compare with Su-35, for example, which is like the latest Russian fighter jet? Because the F-16 is not the latest one.
Latest Russian fighter jet. That's like saying the tallest midget. Sorry. Yes, I do. The short answer is because these F-16s have what's called a midlife update. So what happens is these jets are older than the ones that we fly, but they have all been modified to contain the same avionics, the same cockpit and everything else as the latest U.S. and NATO F-16s. So the airframe may be a little bit older, but who cares? It's very good. It's very strong. All the avionics and the weapons and everything else are all the same as the West and NATO flies. So yeah, I think that combined with the skills of the pilots more than makes the difference. Because when you have two airplanes that are roughly similar technically, okay, it comes down to the better pilot. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I'm not dismissing the Russians, because they can fly, they can fight, but they don't fly and they don't fight the way we do, and they don't fly and they don't fight the way that the Ukrainian pilots have been trained to. So I'm not worried about it.
What's the major difference between like West piloting school and Russian piloting school? Could you explain?
It goes down to the mentality. Russians, you know this, Russians don't do anything without a plan, right? I mean, it's very much like a recipe in a cookbook. Mm-hmm. If you throw something at them that they haven't thought of and haven't had a lot of time to think about and plan for, they don't really know what to do. Western training programs in Europe and the United States teach flexibility and adaptability. We don't use preset plans for anything. And that's one of the biggest strengths that we have over the way the Russians do things. Now, again, I'm not minimizing the Russians, because you never underestimate your enemy. But as taken as a group, that's a fair assessment of how they fly versus how we fly.
Right. Ukrainian pilots, maybe they didn't have like the highest flight time hours, like records, but our pilots, they do have a lot of combat experience. So what lessons could be learned from Ukrainian pilots by NATO countries, you think?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And typically, you mentioned the flying hours. Western and American pilots fly 3 to 4 times the number of hours that the Russians do. And hopefully when the war is won and Ukraine rebuilds its Air Force, they will use that sort of a model so your pilots get lots of flying time. But as you said, they've been in combat, except for when they were in training, since the war started. And every war is different. Okay, so what they have experience with now is this war against this enemy with these types of weapons. And the wars that I fought in were vastly different than this one. So I would like to talk to your pilots and find out what they've learned. When you combine what they have learned with what we can also teach them, you're going to have a very effective and very deadly group of pilots that can handle anything that comes at them.
In your own opinion, what do you see as major challenges for Ukrainian Air Force at the moment?
I would say, like I mentioned earlier, they've had time to figure out the logistics and the repair, the maintenance. All of that gets overlooked because, the flying part is more glamorous and that's what people want to see. Mm-hmm. They don't want to see the poor guy that spends 10 hours, fixing a jet. That's essential, though, in any modern Air Force, because these jets, as I said, are very complex. And from what I've seen, your maintenance folks are very, very good. They have taken to the F-16 and the procedures and everything, and then adapted what's different for Ukraine to keep these jets flying. And they are flying. They continue to fly. I would say that continuing to do that as you expand and get more airplanes would probably be one of the larger challenges, but I don't foresee any big problem with your people doing that, because they've shown a very, very large willingness to ask questions, to learn, and then take what they already know, like your pilots do, and combine it with what they've learned, and you get an airplane that flies, you get a pilot that kills.
When I was preparing, I read a lot about you, but I couldn't find information about your nickname, Two Dogs. Could you tell the background story, the story behind that?
Absolutely not. My mother might see this.
By the way, have you been to Ukraine so far?
Yes.
Yes, and well, if I may ask, when was that, and what was your impression?
It was recently. And one of the reasons I came, you asked me earlier if I would fight
Yeah.
for Ukraine. I wanted to see the country and something of the people to see if it was worth going back into another war. And you definitely are. I have a great respect for the resilience of the Ukrainian people, and you're going to win. You know, as long as you can keep getting supplied with what you need, you're going to win. I was very impressed. I liked Kyiv especially. I mean, who wouldn't? A very, very nice town. I never saw an unattractive woman, which is nice. The food was good. Of course, there's vodka everywhere, so I was happy. My impression is very good, and I tell that to anybody here that asks. And I will, as I said, be honored to come and fight for Ukraine if I'm asked to do so.
Thanks so much. It's great to hear such things from a person like you. And thanks so much for watching us and supporting us. Please leave your comment regarding this interview in the comment section, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It will greatly help us. See you next time.